Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Beacon Patrol by Torben Ratzlaff and published by Pandasaurus Games. This is a cooperative tile-laying game for 1 to 4 players, which plays in about half an hour for ages 8 and up. And before I start explaining how to set up and play the game and share my thoughts on the game, I'd like to ask you to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. That really helps the channel, and if you're already subscribed, you're an absolute legend. Thank you very much. And also please check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below, and there you can see how you can support my channel and which benefits patrons get. All right, let's open up the box and set up a game. To set up a game of Beacon Patrol, take the Beacon Patrol headquarters tile, which is this one, and you can recognize it by the anchor on the back of the tile, and put it somewhere in the middle of the table. From all the tiles in the box, remove the 5 tiles with the windmill and the 4 tiles with the piers. This is a mini expansion that is included in the core game, and they suggest you remove this for your first plays, but you can of course add them in later if you're more experienced with the game. Then shuffle all the remaining tiles and just form a stack or a number of stacks and keep them within easy reach. Every player takes one of the 4 ships and the matching reference card with their color, so you are reminded which color ship is yours. And these reference cards have all the actions you can take listed on one side and the scoring on the other for the end of the game. And then depending on the number of players that are playing, so let's say we're playing a 3-player game, you place your ships on the starting tile and you take a number of tiles from the stack and a number of these movement tokens, which are double-sided. And in a 1-player game, you take 3 tiles and 4 tokens. In a 2-player game, you take 3 tiles and 3 tokens. In a 3-player game, you take 3 tiles and 3 tokens as well. And in a 4-player game, you take 2 tiles and 2 tokens. The player who last visited the sea is the first player, or simply randomly decide, and then you can start playing. Let's explain the rules. The objective of Beacon Patrol is to work together to explore as much of the sea and the coastline by putting down tiles as possible, trying to find lighthouses and beacons, such as this tile and this tile, because at the end of the game you're going to score points for explored tiles, and an explored tile is a tile that has other tiles, explored tiles, on all 4 adjacent sides. Only orthogonal sides count. And players take turns in clockwise order, and on their turn they can do a number of actions, and you can take as many actions as you are able to. So first action you could take, and you can take them in any order, is to place a tile. And when you place a tile, so you start out with a number of tiles. So in a 3-player game I'd have 3, so let's say that these are the tiles that I drew, and I can place a tile adjacent to the tile that my ship is on. So if I'm the white player here, the white-gray ship there, I could, for example, take this tile and place it next to this tile and then move my ship towards it. You always move your ship onto the tile you explored. Now there are a number of rules to take into account when placing a tile. First of all, you can only place a tile on a space that is adjacent to the tile that your ship is on. So in this case, if I explored from this tile, I could place a tile technically here, here, and here, but I can't place it here. I'll explain that in a bit. And adjacent placement again is only orthogonal, never diagonal. You also need to orient your tile in the same orientation as the starting tile. That black arrow in the corner there indicates what direction that is. So this tile also needs to point that way, and that goes for any tile that is going to be played. Of course, you also need to match the edges, so water against water and land against land. You can of course not place a tile like this or that. And since your ships, you can only move through water. So if you're placing a tile, of course, like this, I'm exploring, then I need to be able to move there, which is why I can't explore here, because if I placed a tile here, even though it matches and the orientation is correct, my ship can't move through land. So that's why I can't explore here. A second action I can do is just moving without exploring over already explored tiles. So let's just say that a couple of tiles had already been explored possibly by other players. Then I can just simply decide to move somewhere if I want to explore in a different direction, for example, and that will cost me movement points, which is why I have these tokens. So for every tile that I move, I have to flip over one of these tokens and exhaust that movement. And these are just to remember how many movement points you've already spent, because you can take these actions in any order. I could again explore here and then automatically move into that explored tile and then perhaps move back if I wanted to. And again, I can only move over water and only orthogonally. And the last action I can do, let's just say I had some more tiles left, is to swap tiles with another player. But I can only do that once per turn, but I do have immediate access to that tile and can place it if I want to explore again. And you can explore up as many times as you have tiles left, as long as you can place them. So right now, for example, I could still explore here, just explore that way and move my ship automatically onto that tile. Then I could explore my final tile to the left here and move onto that tile. And I still have some movement left, and maybe I want to explore along those edges. So I'm going to spend another movement tile token to move here, and maybe I want to be there. I could spend my last one if I wanted to and move there. If I have tiles that I cannot use or do not want to place, and of course keep in mind the orientation needs to be correct here, then I can choose to discard a tile. It's just removed from the game, so that means I can't place it later. So for example, I want to discard this, I just return it to the box, and by doing so I get one movement back. And I can, if I wanted to, discard multiple tiles for more movement, but keep in mind that less tiles means less points at the end of the game. And at the end of my turn, if I've placed all of my tiles and did all of the moves that I wanted to do, and possibly swapped out one tile with another player, then you can end your turn. And when ending your turn, if you still had any tiles left that you couldn't place or didn't want to place, those are automatically discarded as well. And then you draw back up to the number of tiles that you started with. So in this case, in a 3-player game, I get 3 new tiles, and I can of course draw them from any stack I want, and just like making 3 stacks so that the stacks aren't too tall. You flip all your spent movement tiles back to the blue side, and then it's the next player's turn. So then when all the tiles from the drawing stacks are gone and either have been placed or discarded, then game end and scoring starts. Every fully explored tile is 1 point, and a fully explored tile means a tile that is surrounded on all 4 sides by another tile. So that means all the tiles on the edges don't score points, but everything inside the map does. Now, a regular tile that does not have a buoy or a lighthouse is simply worth 1 point. So this tile, for example, and this one would be worth 1 point. Every fully explored tile with a beacon buoy, so this one and that, they are worth 2 points. And the explored tiles with a lighthouse on them, including the headquarters tile, that's also a lighthouse, is worth 3 points. You simply add up all of those points, and then you check the booklet to see how well you did. If you added the mini expansion with the piers and the windmills, then every windmill that is also fully explored scores 1 point, plus an additional point for every open ocean tile that is adjacent to it. So in this case, this is an open ocean tile, so is this, and so is that, but this is not. This one has land masses, so that's not open water. So this windmill would score 1 point for being fully explored, plus another 1, 2, 3 points for those open water tiles. This windmill would not score at all because it is not fully explored. Piers, like this one over here, will score points also when fully explored, so that means surrounded, again, with a tile on all four sides. And they score 1 point for being explored, plus an additional point for every building on the landmass it is connected to. And while the pier must be fully explored, the landmass that the pier is connected to does not have to be fully explored or completed to award additional points. So in this case, this pier is worth 1 point for being fully explored, plus it scores points for the buildings on this entire landmass, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. And of course, if it wasn't fully explored, so for example, this tile wasn't here, it wouldn't be surrounded by tiles, then it wouldn't score any points at all. There is also a mini expansion called Discovery Tiles, which is basically just 2 tiles, one with open water and one with full land with a building on it. And those tiles aren't shuffled in, they're simply set aside somewhere within easy reach, of course, of all the players. And you can only place them once the conditions to placing them has been met, which means for the water tile that you have explored a section. So for example, if I had explored like so with my ship going all around here, and I have a section that is surrounded by tiles that would fit the tile, then I can place that tile immediately like so, because it fits on all 4 sides with the tiles already present. And for the land tile, that of course means the same. So for example, had we explored this part with a ship, which also means you'd have to have a tile here, of course, otherwise you can't reach it. And somehow we've also explored a water tile down here and a tile which has land on one side down here, which you just can't see on the frame here. I'll just push this up a little. So, and this is completely surrounded by land. Then I could take this tile and put it in here. And when you're scoring your tiles at the end of the game, each of those tiles, and you can recognize them with the red arrow here, are worth 3 points each. And in the rules booklet on the back, you can see how well you did by adding up your score and seeing what your rank is without an expansion, with 1 expansion, or with 2 expansions right there. And those are all the rules for Beacon Patrol. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Beacon Patrol by Pandasaurus, who I'd like to thank for donating a copy for me to review. Let's start with the components. Components are of a very good quality. The tiles are nice and thick, good quality, printed nicely, they're nice and smooth as well. They just look really good, and I like the clear printing on them. The colors are nice. And the tokens, of course, that you use for your movement are of the same thickness and the same quality. You also all get a reference card, one for each player in each color, that has the actions you can do and the scoring on the back, so that is very handy as well. Also of a standard card quality, and I really like these little ships. Ships in different colors here. There's a blue, black, red, and gray one. And they have a little bit of a printing on them. It looks really nice and lovely, and it's just nice to have those on the table, on the board, moving around. The only quibble I really have is with the box itself, because it's slightly bigger than it needs to be. Mostly with the insert here, you have one big spot for all the tiles and a slot up here for the tokens and the ships. But it's pretty deep, as you can see. So there was space on top of this insert, which had all the punch boards. But once they're all punched, all the tiles go into this vault here in the insert. And if you store your game vertically, they'll just tumble around. And if you've sorted out the expansion tiles, then you need to sort them out again every time. So this box could have been about half the height that it has now. So, I mean, I would have preferred if they had made the box smaller and just put the punch boards on top, which would have led to the lid being not flush while packing it. But that doesn't matter, because once you unpack it, you take out the punch boards, you punch the tiles, then the lid would go all the way down. So that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, really, to try and make boxes as compact as possible. But otherwise, components are very good, and like I already touched on, the artwork is also really nice. Bright blue colors, mostly, of course, with white for the land, and thick black line art. It looks really nice, and the only other color that you'll see is the red on the lighthouses and the buoys, and that's really cool. It's very, very minimalistic, but I really enjoyed it. It has a very nice aesthetic, and yeah, it just looks nice. Once you put all your tiles together, you really get this sea landscape with all these little islands in it. So that looks really nice. The theme is all right, pretty unique, really. I do not have any games that have, exploration of a coastline or the sea that much. It's mostly tiles on land, like Carcassonne and such. Although I do have small islands, which I guess is more or less the same idea. So yeah, I do have that. But I do like the theme. It's kind of fun to just go out and explore and see how many tiles you can get, and trying to make them all fit. And of course, the challenge, which brings me to the gameplay, is of course to put all these tiles in the same orientation, because all these arrows need to point in the same direction so that the art matches. But that is the challenge, because it's pretty hard to get that tile that you need to fill in a certain spot. So you're drawing a tile and you're thinking, well, my ship is over here, and if I can't place this tile, then I'll need to move somewhere else. But then you can swap cards or tiles with other players too. So you're constantly discussing and looking at the board. Where are the other players, and can they use this tile? And maybe they have a tile that I can use on my turn. So you're trying to see who has what, and you're trying to swap out a tile that can actually help you. And you swap those out with the player who can use your tile the best, and that's how you progress, because you want to have as many tiles on the table as possible to get a higher score, because only the tiles that are completely surrounded on the four orthogonal sides, they score points. And of course, you're trying to get the buoys and the lighthouses to be surrounded as well, because they score 2 and 3 points respectively. And that's just really fun. It's basically a big puzzle that you're playing together, because it's cooperative. You're just trying to score as many points as possible, and it has that puzzly element that I like. Replayability is also pretty good, because of course you're shuffling your tiles every time, so the layout will be different every time you play, obviously. And I mean, for me, that makes the replayability good. It also doesn't last too long. Once you're through all the tiles, you're done, which indeed takes about half an hour. And then you score, and you might want to try again to see if you can get a better score. It's also a lot of fun to play solo as well. I do find that it is a little bit easier with 3 or 4 players, because there's simply more players and you can spread out. You can move your ships in all different directions, and then you can trade tiles to possibly place as many tiles as possible and not have to discard any, which of course will cost you points in the end. And with the mini expansions, there's one mini expansion in the core game itself, which has these windmills that'll score you extra points, and also piers. So these tiles, so you can mix those in to add an extra challenge. And there's a mini expansion as well that I got with the game, which has an all land and an all sea tile, which also score 3 points each if they are fully surrounded. Well, you can only place them once. They can be put in a spot that fully surrounds them, so they automatically score those points if you can play them. So that adds a bit to the replayability as well. Furthermore, the game is fully language independent, aside from, of course, the rulebook and your reference card, which has, of course, the turns, the actions explained in English. But otherwise, once you know the rules, you don't really need them anymore. And this can be played with anyone, because there's no text at all on the tiles, of course. So it's technically fully language independent. All in all, I really enjoyed this game. It's very relaxing. It's a lot of fun. I love the puzzle aspect and the cooperation in this game. So I'm giving this 2 thumbs up. Beacon Patrol by Pandasaurus. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And please also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.